one of the things that's really exciting is we just got a study back from Johns Hopkins University. Yes, that Johns Hopkins University. And they did a study on the efficacy of Flashlight 360 on student achievement. And, basically by students using Flashlight, just 2 times, which ideally they'll use it like 10 or 15 or 20 times throughout a school year. But just using it twice, those students scored at 25% better than the students who didn't use it. So we're pretty excited about what this means.
Startups with Stu is a podcast for anyone living or wanting to live the startup life, either as a founder or a team member. Your host, Stuart Draper, was a 9-time Inc. 5000 honoree before age 40. This show dives deep into the exhilarating world of entrepreneurship with guests that are seeking advice from Stu for their startup or business owners that want to share their entrepreneurial journey. Listeners always walk away with actionable ideas of what to do to take their startup to the moon. Startup life can feel like a roller coaster ride. And with Startups with Stu, you're likely to turn your roller coaster ride into a rocket ship ride. Get ready to uncover the secrets to startup success from visionary founders and savvy investors who've transformed groundbreaking ideas into thriving ventures.
Today we have with us Mr. Justin Hewett, the founder and CEO of Flashlight Learning. Thank you for joining me today, Justin.
Oh, Stu, what a pleasure. I'm so excited you're doing this. This is awesome.
Yeah, always a pleasure for me, especially to be with an entrepreneur, but especially an edtech entrepreneur and one that is off to a fiery start. You guys are crushing it at Flashlight.
It's been a fun journey. At Flashlight, we serve kids that are learning English as a second language in school districts around the nation. And really what we're doing as far as helping, teachers understand where their students are on their language journey, has really been impactful and it's resonated. So it's been neat to see it spread, from district to district across the nation. We're not in all of them yet. We still have a lot of work to do, but we've got a good start.
What's your estimation on total students helped so far?
As far as total helped, we're over 200,000 students. Currently, we're serving a little over 125,000 kids, and I think we're almost to 350 school districts. We're now serving kids in 41 states. So it's been kind of a fun, quick journey. We've been able to land in some places and make a difference. One of the things that's really exciting is we just got a study back from Johns Hopkins University. Yes, that Johns Hopkins University. And they did a study on the efficacy of Flashlight 360 on student achievement. And, basically by students using Flashlight, just 2 times, which ideally they'll use it like 10 or 15 or 20 times throughout a school year. But just using it twice, those students scored at 25% better than the students who didn't use it. So we're pretty excited about what this means and what it will say to kind of new school districts, because what they'll be able to do is look at it and say, okay, if we implement it well, we're going to get good results.
Awesome. So how'd you get into the game of education?
Oh my gosh. What an amazing place to be, first of all. Like I love it here. And long story short, I was doing an internship at a venture capital company that I had kind of talked myself into. I had done door-to-door sales before that. And I had made a little bit of money and I wanted to do this internship. And so I was talking with the guy and I said, hey, if you guys don't even have to pay me and I would love to come and do it. And he said, well, that was like the magic word, I guess. So I got in and was doing this internship with all these Ivy League MBA candidates. And anyways, met a guy that was recruiting there and just loved the idea of like helping people find great jobs and their next spot, and ended up going to work at a recruiting company afterwards, like an executive search firm, and had absolutely zero success. I never placed one person. I was covering banking in the fall of 2008, and that was not a very good time to be trying to help anybody in banking find a job because banks were trying to let people go. And anyways, after I left there after about 3 months, and that was like one of the hardest moments of my life, to be honest, because it was like I had completely failed, had no success, was miserable. But a guy that I had started and we had quit within a day of each other, he had the door-to-door background too. We talked a bunch and ended up, while we were looking for our next job, and he told me about his buddy that was working at Imagine Learning and that they got to sell something. It was like helping kids. And one of the things that stuck out to me is he's like, yeah, and he's done it like 3:30 in the afternoon because like school's shut down. And so I looked into it and was blown away that you could actually make money like selling something to schools and like go make a difference. Like who knew schools had money for stuff like that, you know? And so I reached out to, you know, one of the founders of Imagine Learning and asked him if I could come and learn more. That was a strategy that I had kind of learned from that recruiting company. And anyways, he brought me in and they didn't have a job for me at the time, but I called every week for the next 3 months and eventually they found me a spot on the phones, you know, making cold calls, you know, so.
No, that's so cool. So you started doing cold call sales for Imagine Learning and edtech in the K-12 space.
That's right.
And then, okay, so you get going there, you're crushing it, I'm guessing, selling for them after no time at all. What'd that look like? Did it work out that way right away? You started winning?
You know, I got lucky. I did hit my quota my first year, which was kind of a new thing. You know, edtech does have sales cycles to a large degree that can take a while to get into that, you know, into the budget and do some of that work. But I'd been lucky that, you know, there was a couple pilots that that were in the area that I was given that I was able to have some success with. And frankly, I just went to work because of my, you know, the failure that I was coming off of. I could not allow any amount of opportunity for failure. I was going to do whatever it took to be successful. And so I was covering 17 states at the time. A lot of the states, there's 2 of us that were covering a lot of states like that. You know, now it's kind of normal to be on Zoom and do meetings like that. We used GoToMeeting and WebEx and they did not work as well as they do today. So I had to travel out a fair amount. But yeah, I started covering 17 states. And then over the years, as Imagine Learning grew, when we'd get enough, you know, customers in a territory that they felt like they could hire somebody in territory, they would. So my area eventually got whittled down to the point where I was covering this the school district of Omaha Public Schools, Iowa, the state of Iowa, and Kansas City. And that year, I actually ended up being the number 2 rep in the company. I had a good run there.
The focus was actually probably helpful then, huh?
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And I think the business just kept going and growing and having more offerings right along the way for your sales career.
Yeah. Over time, Imagine started acquiring businesses that we would then sell additional products. When we first started, we were serving students who were learning English as a second language with kind of a language and a literacy program. So, you know, a lot of emphasis on reading, but a fair amount on, you know, some speaking as well. But over time, we added math products and now Imagine Learning itself is a huge conglomerate, if you will, with a lot of different, I mean, they probably have 30, 40 different products that they sell through so many acquisitions.
So, Justin, how does that success in sales then translate into, I'm going to go start my own education technology company? I think a lot of listeners are going, oh, I want to know about this journey of like, how do I leave the sales world and go be an entrepreneur myself? Like, how does that happen?
So funny. That was not what I was planning on doing. We don't have time for my whole story necessarily as far as, you know, some of those details, but I'll give a little bit of background. I grew up in a family where my dad was always starting a new business, always in the construction space, but he was always going to start a new business. And my parents always lived on a little more than they earned. That doesn't bode well. That ends up building a house of cards that falls when the economy shifts. And that's what happened. And, you know, ultimately, you know, over a lot of heartache and a lot of, you know, tough things, you know, my parents ended up getting divorced. You know, we went bankrupt. And then in addition to that, you know, in many respects, like a lot of relationships in our family were fractured. And, you know, I grew up in that. I saw a lot of that. And I had actually, like, at an early age, I knew I was entrepreneurial, but there was no way I was going to allow myself to go build a business or start a business because of what I had seen it do to my family. And so I made a vow or a commitment to myself and to my family that I was not going to go pursue entrepreneurial ventures or activities or work until I had gotten myself or gotten our family to a point where we had more investment income each month than we were living on. And so we had gotten to that point, you know, my wife and I, we saved everything we made. Like, we lived on very little. and we saved everything we could and invested it in different cash producing assets, mostly real estate to start. And anyways, I had gotten to that point, and through the years, I ended up being promoted at Imagine to being the EVP of sales, and was excited for that work. I was all in on like starting my own company was the furthest thing from my mind, because I felt like I had such a great opportunity to help build Imagine. And, ultimately at the end of the day, I'm a very mission-driven individual and like working in a group with an organization where I get to be mission-driven. And, with the private equity firm coming in and some of the things that they needed to do that, Imagine Learning had become more bottom line driven at the end of the day. And so I no longer belong there. I left in April of 2020, a month into, COVID, kind of sweeping the nation, sweeping the world, and didn't start working on anything that became Flashlight until about 6 months into that, sabbatical of sorts, if you will. So that I don't know if that makes me a reluctant entrepreneur. I wasn't reluctant necessarily, but I had to make sure that I had, my bases covered before I felt like I could take that leap.
And it is a leap. How did your wife take that? Was she like all on board for it?
Rebecca has been the very best, partner for me in so many different ways. But yeah, I mean, this is all the stuff that we've talked about for years. Like when we were early married, just newlyweds, we'd walk around, the little area where we lived, and we'd talk about the stories of what we wanted to build. And we had this figure eight loop that we would do. And we would just talk, we'd walk 5 miles just talking about our dreams and what we wanted to build. And a lot of that's come to play. I mean, we have more kids than I think we thought we were going to have. We have 6 kids today. And, I think in some respects, we've probably had a little more success than we were kind of planning on, because in those days when you compound things out and you're planning and you're strategizing, you don't realize that there's going to be some times that you get, some pops or some jumps if you're really working hard and doing things right.
Yeah. So 6 kids. How many of the kids were born at Imagine Learning versus how many were born after at Flashlight?
5 were born when I was working at Imagine, and then 1 was born just about a year into Flashlight. Kind of fun.
Awesome. I remember telling one of the early investors in Stukent that I was going to have more kids, and they were like worried that I wasn't going to be able to succeed if I did that. And, that's not how it works. I think there's always a way if it's what you want, if you want to go work for it. What's been the secret for your success being a dad? I noticed, by the way, earlier you're holding up your wrist. You had a Best Dad Ever bracelet you were rocking. So how do you win Best Dad Ever award and Best Founder CEO award?
Oh, well, I haven't. I don't know if I've actually won the Best Founder CEO award. I can't wait to get a bracelet that says that on it one day maybe. I think a big piece of, starting a company and being a dad, because it's interesting. I think a lot of companies are started by, folks that don't have much to lose, right? That don't have a lot of responsibility, or, maybe they're in their later years or whatever. But I think for me, it was really important for me to get our family to that financial spot. And it's allowed us, I feel like, to enjoy the journey more. Like I'm not burning the candle at both ends. There are seasons when that's happening, right? And it does feel like actually that Rebecca and I are burning the candle at both ends to a large degree, but much of that is parenting as well. And the way that, the culture that we want in our family of, having our kids do their piano and gymnastics or dance and basketball and, all these different things that, were pretty formative for us in helping, I think, develop identity, learning how to work hard, learning to fail, right? And learning that like you're going to fail. It's not a matter of if. And when you do fail, you have to pick yourself up. You got to get going again, jump back on that bike, step back into the practice lab, whatever it might be. Like you got to get better. And so, I think that to me is one of the big things, is just understanding that I can do more work tomorrow. There are some things that end up being pushed a little bit, but I always make sure that I get done what's critical, like the things that we have got to do today that's going to move the needle. And, I'd be remiss to not include the fact that, like, I think a big part of it is having an amazing team. Like I've got a great team at Flashlight, some just incredible leaders, early sales partners that came in that just, really figured things out and did an amazing job. Like we have a strong team at Flashlight. So I think it's some of those places, making sure you're investing in the right areas of your life so that you can have an awesome little girl that gives you a bracelet with Best Dad Ever on it,
I love it. So are you enjoying the building of your business? So like you did the startup phase,
Yeah.
early stage startup phase. And from everything I'm gathering, you did enjoy that. Are you enjoying now that it's getting a little more mature and there's more people
Yeah,
still
we have
still do?
50 team members now, and it is different, right? Like as you grow, like the work becomes a little bit different. We're not necessarily worried about, is our product going to impact kids? That was early on. We were trying to figure out some of that type of stuff. I am enjoying it. I think it's been a lot of fun to build. I'm a builder. I have a builder poem that I have all my kids memorized. We love thinking of ourselves as builders and
Wait.
investors.
I got to hear the poem now. Like, don't leave us
There's
hanging on the poem.
Okay. I actually don't know who this is. I feel like sometimes it's put on the internet as anonymous, but I'll do my best to give it to you right here. I watched them tearing a building down, a gang of men in a busy town. With a ho-heave-ho and a lusty yell, they swung a beam and a sidewall fell. I asked the foreman, are these men skilled as the men you'd hire if you were to build? He gave me a laugh and said, no, indeed. Common labor is all I need. I can easily wreck in a day or two what it takes builders years to do. I asked myself as I went my way, which of these two roles have I tried to play? Am I a builder who works with care, measuring life by the rule and the square? Am I shaping my work by a well-made plan, patiently doing the best that I can? Or am I a wrecker who walks the town, content with the labor of tearing down?
I love that.
Isn't that great? I
That's
love it.
so awesome.
So we think of ourselves as builders, and I think, that's part of the thing that I've really enjoyed is just seeing the growth, seeing it being built, like, have you ever been out to Sagrada Familia by chance?
No, I haven't.
So if I remember right, it's in Barcelona. And it's this absolutely just incredible, I guess you would call it a cathedral, but it's been being built for hundreds of years. Like literally, it's gone through multiple architects and it's open, but they're still working on it. And it's this absolutely just beautiful and incredible monument of sorts, to God. And it's just, you walk in there and it is special. Like you can tell it's been a sacred work. And for me, that's in many ways, that's what Flashlight has become, is a sacred work, something that, I'm trying to make sure that I arrange my life and do the work that allows me to really enjoy it. Right. And a big part of that is making sure I don't do the things that I hate, is making sure that I've got other people that they love to do that and they do that so that, it allows me to, focus on the things that I love and enjoy. And, and a big part of that, like one of my best friends is also my COO, and Andrew has done such a remarkable job of, helping us find people to free me up to focus on the things that I can do and love and really enjoy.
I think you will find that as your business keeps growing, there's always new things to build and new ways to build. So you can continue to be satisfied with this type of work for a very long time because of that and that mentality. That's cool. And by the way, I love that you're teaching that to your children. They've memorized it too?
Oh yeah, they all memorize it. I don't have my 4-year-old doesn't have it memorized yet, but everybody else does. My 4 and 2-year-old don't have it.
So when they're complaining in the back of the car, instead of being like, I'm going to pull this car over, you're just saying, are you a builder?
I probably should say that a little more often. That would be helpful, actually.
That's awesome.
Well, Stu, while I've got you, maybe I'll ask you a question if you don't mind. One of the things that we run into as we continue to grow Flashlight is, we don't have an institutional investment group, and frankly, I'm not, looking to go and do that, right? For a lot of different reasons. Like I want to make sure that we get to work on our timeline and we have our optionality. And one of the things that, that creates as a challenge from time to time is, funding shortfalls, right? Whether it's the peaks and valleys of edtech where, there's lots of, purchase orders coming in and transactions happening. And sometimes a year where there's very few, that creates a little bit of a cash flow crunch. As you grew Stukent over the years, how did you end up kind of financing things through the years? Because I know you took on a little bit of capital, but I mean, relatively speaking, compared to most companies, you took on very little.
Yeah, we raised like 350, then we raised like 250, then we raised like 250, and then I got smart. So edtech founders, if you're listening, I wish that I had learned about bridge money sooner, bridge loans are a great way to fund an ed tech business. So if you make money in September and then you're not going to make money again till January, and then from January you got to wait all the way till September again to make money, and that's how it is in the higher ed world.
Right,
Different,
right.
a little bit different for you, Justin, in your world. Yours is almost like once a year, really, in Maine. It's Maine.
Yeah,
Payday,
it's the
right?
end of the budget year and the beginning of the budget year, and they're right next to each other.
Yeah. And so in that case, you have to always find ways to get creative to pay the bills and meet payroll throughout the rest of the year. And educators don't know or care or understand that world that you face. They just want good product and they want it on time and all that. But you're going to have to deal with that. And as you deal with it, you can raise money and give up equity and ownership in your business. And you will pay big for that later in money that could have been yours when you have if someone acquires your business later. And you just give up a lot of control along the way when you do that. What we did was we eventually just took on a private loan where it was interest only, 10%. And turned out those people that gave us that $200,000 were happy to earn 10% on their money. And they let us take like 3 years to pay it back. And so we just paid interest for 3 years at 10%. And, eventually they made really good money on that. And we probably should have paid it back a little faster maybe. But at the end of the day, that 200 grand still would have cost me quite a bit in, 4, 5, maybe even 8% percentage points of the ownership of the business. And so if you can raise some money, some bridge money that's just debt, interest only, that's a good way to go and something I'd consider. I like that you're thinking about holding on to the majority ownership, Justin. I think that's wise. And I think it's also wise to, where you can, bootstrap from here.
Yeah.
The value you'll get later because you bootstrapped here will be much greater. People, private equity groups especially, are impressed by that, appreciate that. It's a good sign for them that the business is going to fund itself well when they're the majority owner, right?
Right.
If you do take the private equity route someday, if you take a strategic buyer route someday too, that could work, and they're going to look at that as a good thing too, that the business was funding itself.
It's so interesting. Like my motivations for trying to keep majority is really around wanting to maintain our optionality and make sure that we get to chart our own course. I understand that, venture capitalists or even growth equity groups, PE groups, like they all have timelines that they're working on, whether it's, 5 more years or maybe they've got 3 more years left in their fund or whatever it might be. And ultimately, those timelines are going to dictate their behavior, which then dictate, how we would potentially run or build our business, which I think impacts how you have to treat your team members and how you treat customers and all that kind of stuff. And so I really like the alignment that comes with, trying to optimize for, impacting the most amount of students. And if we can do that.
Wise, Justin. Yeah, you get to control that. It's in your court. If you want to do a special like cause marketing thing where you build a school in Mexico, you can choose to do that, and you can use the business's money to fund it, and your employees are going to love that you do it. And that's your choice. But when there's investors, all of a sudden that's different, right? They may not be as excited about the school in Mexico or believe that it's the right thing to do for the business. And today you get to make that decision and you call those shots. That's awesome. And I applaud you for considering that. You wrote down another question here that I think's really interesting. You said, what's the best way to upgrade your leadership team when somebody has proven they can't scale with the company? I believe that you want that person that helped you grow the business but now can't grow as fast as the business is growing. You want to treat them so well for what they've done and give them opportunities to still excel and succeed somewhere else in the organization, as long as they bring a good positive addition to the culture, as long as they can still add value and not be negative, that person still can have a seat. It's just got to be a different one now. And as it relates to upgrading the leadership team, there is a really weird balance between bringing in talent into a startup that's used to working in a large corporation and bringing them into your small business where things are done so differently. Budgets are less,
Right.
and human resources are less. Like that leader that excelled managing 200 people may not excel managing their 12 that they're going to get out of your 50 people, right?
Right.
And
Or
so
three.
or three, right? Yeah.
Right.
And so upgrading leadership is really interesting at your stage. Finding the person, what we used to do, and I would say, look, when we're 2 million, we want to hire people that are going to take us to 10 million. The people that are going to take us to 10 million. And so if they haven't been there and done that in a 2 to 10 million business, maybe they're not the right fit. Maybe they are, and we'll still look, we'll consider it. But who are the people that are going to take us? Now we're 4. Who's going to take us from 4 to 40 million?
Right.
Who are the people that have been through that stage of business? They know that world and they can do that. Like that's powerful.
It's interesting. Are you familiar with Andrew Wilkinson of Tiny?
Mm-hmm.
So he's got a pretty interesting thing that he's been doing, but he tries to say that his company Tiny is the Berkshire Hathaway of SaaS startup companies. They like to buy boring businesses, kind of a thing, very much like vertical software. But one of the things that they've had to learn how to do and figure out is he's about our age, is like hire CEOs. And he says that one of the things that he really tries to do is find somebody from the same industry that has ran a business twice the size of the one that they're hiring for. And I thought that was just interesting because then they're looking at, they know the systems that they need to have in place and the processes and, kind of what it will look like. And so it's interesting. It's almost like someone that's been to the promised land and is now going to help take the company there. And, as you were kind of describing, that idea, that really resonated with me because of kind of what I've heard from Andrew and his group. So how do you have that conversation, Stu? I know that we're getting close to the end of time here, but how do you have that conversation with that team member that, has added tremendous value for a number of years, and now it's just the company has kind of grown past where they are today and where they're able to really impact, the continued growth of the company?
Yeah, so I haven't read this book in its entirety yet. Okay. The book is called Love as a Business Strategy.
Ooh, I like it.
And I haven't read it word for word. Okay. So I can't give it the best review or the most thorough review, but the founder of one of my startups that I've invested in, he's a big fan of the book. And the reason I pull it up is just to say, like, you just go at them with love.
Yeah.
Go at them from a place of full love and understanding that, like, they have been instrumental in getting the business to where it is, and that you want to find the right path forward for them in their career and for the business. And there's a way to do both of those things. They may go, oh, but no, for me, I'm going to that title, or I have to have that title. Okay, well, it's not going to be here long term. And so if that's what you want, I wholeheartedly support it, but I want you to know that I'm going a different direction. And if you can lead there, that you will never negatively impact the culture of your business, because people will know that that's how you treated them. It goes a really long way with that. That person's going to leave without a sour taste in their mouth. They're going to understand why you chose to do what you did. And, it doesn't have to be an overnight thing. You need to make these moves. It feels right. You should do it. Okay, great. Make the move and give the person some grace and time, and everything works out. That's how I would approach that.
I love it. That's really helpful for me. I appreciate the chance to sit on your couch and get some advice here.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you being on the show today. Thank you so much, Justin. This is part 1, by the way. We got to have a part 2 because there's so many other things we could discuss.
I'd love it, man. I'd love it. Yeah, any chance to hang out more with you, Stu?
Okay, buddy. Well, hey, I can't thank you enough. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Justin Hewett of Flashlight Learning. Go check him out online, see what they're doing. Make sure your children's school is using Flashlight Learning.
That's right. Let's go. Thank you, Stu.
Thanks for joining me on Startups with Stu. We have big goals to help millions of entrepreneurs. If you enjoyed this show, please take a minute to share it with someone else that needs to hear it, or leave a review. Remember, success is within reach for those who dare to dream big and take action. Until next time, keep pushing forward on your entrepreneurial journey.